Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome to week one of my book club. So, the goal here is to just read a book. We come together each and every Sunday here on this platform, 7 p.m. It'll be, who knows how long it'll be, but I'll just go into the facts of what we read and talk about how we felt about it and different things like that. So, this week we've started on the Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. And the task was to read from the introduction through chapter 4. Now, I'm going to be honest. I read majority of it. I just have 4 pages left. Literally, like, no, is it 4? No, I have 7 pages left in chapter 4. But I've read through the entirety. I just have 7 pages left in chapter 4 that I will be reading by the end of tonight. But just for the time of this live, I haven't been able to have it right now. Now, the book is based on like having financial process, the financial principles, and learning different things and different traits to help get you out of financial debt, to help build your mindset to how you think about money now and how you think about money in the future. Now, the things that I got from the introduction and everything up until chapter 1, I got that your financial process and principles must work in good times and in bad times. What does this mean? This means that whatever you have, whatever strategy that you have in regards to your finances, whatever strategy that you have in regards to how you spend and make money and everything, it's got to work. Even though things are good right now, you never know what happens in life. Things can come out of nowhere. Something can come, an emergency, just all of a sudden where you got to dish out so much money. And are you prepared to be able to deal with that? That's what I get from that. Are you prepared to be able to deal with that? Because oftentimes what happens is like, yes, we're okay right now, but then God forbid something happens, and then it's like, oh snap, now I gotta figure it out. I gotta figure out how I'm gonna do this, how I'm gonna do that, how I'm gonna bring everything together and still be able to survive and still be able to make sure my kids are taken care of and make sure my bills are paid and different things like that. So your financial process and principles must work in good times and in bad times. And the principles that you build your life on will determine your level of success. Now, for me, that means that if you have a foundation, if you don't have a foundation, you just have everything built on basically a house of cards. It's like any little thing can come and blow it over. And then it's like, oh my gosh, everything just comes crashing down. Like one little thing moves, it's like, oh my gosh. But if you have a strong foundation, you have that knowledge, you have that base, you have all of that strategically set right there as your foundation. If you have that, then you're good to go, because even if something happens, God forbid, but we all know that life is completely unexpected. You can't predict life. Like, you can try to make a plan and you can try to predict, but you never know what will happen. So if you have a strong foundation and something happens, then the event that something happens, then that allows you to be able to just still be okay. Now, in chapter 1, the things that I got were, what to do isn't the problem, but doing it is. Oftentimes, we know what to do. We know what we need to do. Reading these books, we watch these videos, we do all of this. I know I'm preaching to the choir because I'm exactly the same way. Like, I will dive into stuff, like really be a life student. Like, oh my gosh, this is so intriguing. I'm learning all of this information. I'm doing all of this stuff. But it's like, even though you're learning this information, if you're not applying it, getting your mindset together and applying it, then it's basically like, hey, you're basically just allowing it to go in one end and out the other. So that's an initiative definitely for me these days, is to make sure that I just take hold of everything that I'm doing. Now, something that was said in chapter 1 is that I like the way that Dave Ramsey said that he likes the way he's built wealth better than you have it. So that's basically like, to me, that's basically whenever someone comes to you and they're trying to talk to you about something, if they haven't, like, they're trying to tell you about, like, oh, you could do this to make $1 million. Okay, but why aren't you making $1 million? Why aren't you successful? Why aren't the things in your life working? But you're trying to tell me how to do these things, but they're not working. It's a difference if you're going through the process and then you're telling me like, okay, let's go through this process together, guys. Let's do it and let's show and prove for that. But if you're just trying to tell me like, oh, you're such a professional on it, but all I see is that you've professionally been failing, then what does that tell me? That's what I get from that. Now, the other thing is the motto: if you will live like no one else, later you can live like no one else. Basically, that puts me back in the mindset of, I heard I heard Jim Ron say that you have to be willing to do the things today that others won't in order to live the life that others won't. So what it basically means is that you have to make sacrifices. You have to deal with things. You have to go through things. You have to make sacrifices in order to put yourself in a better position. So that way, later on, those sacrifices will pay off. Those things will pay off. Now, the takeaway that I got from chapter 1 is that you have to be ready to face you. You have to look yourself in the mirror and be willing than anything built on an unstable foundation. That goes back to what I was talking about, having a strong foundation versus having everything built on a house of cards. Now, chapter 2. The things that I got in chapter 2 is that 90% of solving a problem is realizing there is one. So, you know how we can go around and just put on a smile to the outside, like, hey, everything is okay, blah, 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 blah. But what the importance of this is that not putting on a smile to yourself, being real with yourself. If there's a problem, be real with yourself for the fact that there is a problem. There is an issue. Something is wrong here, and something is wrong that I need to change. Something is wrong, whether it be my mindset, whether it be my time management, whether it be whatever it is that I'm dealing with, or whatever it is that I'm doing, whatever needs to change, there is something that is a problem, and I have to figure it out. And you have to figure it out in order to know how to correct it, in order to make steps in order to correct it. So that way you can set yourself up in a better standpoint to be able to be more successful in the future. Next point: when something is wrong, stand up and say it is wrong and don't back down. So whenever you're in a situation or anything like that, like even in your life, in your own life, oftentimes we sometimes we might sit down and we might not say something to other people about things that are going on, like, I know this isn't right, but I'm just going to bite my tongue and I'm just not going to say anything. Like, first of all, you should definitely stand up and say something. Don't be afraid to say something. But oftentimes in our own lives, we won't check ourselves that same way. Like, hey, I'm doing this wrong and I know I'm doing it wrong, so I need to correct it. The next point: if you keep doing the same things, you will keep getting the same results. Now, the thing about this is that you can't expect change unless you are willing to change. You got that? Because if you've been doing things this way, well, I've been doing this way for X amount of years. Okay, where has it gotten you? The same results, the same things. You're still going through the same cycle. You're still dealing with the same problems. You still face the same issues, almost like clockwork. Like, you know the outcome that is going to come from you doing this action because you've continuously done it. So if you want to see different results, you have to do something different. Now, the takeaway that I got from chapter 2 is that in order to see changes within your life and financial stability, you must be willing to make some changes. Be completely honest with yourself about what needs to change and what you need to do in order to change. Now, for this, that means being completely frank with yourself. Be blunt with yourself. Just be all the way raw. Something that I like to do is write me out some questions and sit down and have a heart to heart with myself. Like, okay, so what are we doing? What are you doing? What do you want to do? What is this? What do you need in order to get there? Ask yourself these questions and have a heart to heart with yourself and be completely open and honest as to what you need to do in order to make these things happen. Next, chapter 3. Debt is not a tool you can use to be wealthy. It's a tool used to make you think and appear wealthy while being in debt. The way to truly be wealthy is by being debt free. Now, the takeaway from that is basically like using credit cards. Like we all know, like you got to be able to manage credit cards, doing credit card. If you're really great at managing your credit card, cool. But what happens in the event that you lose your job or those finances aren't coming in like you're supposed to? So you got all of these credit cards racking up and racking up and racking up. And it's like, shoot, if I can just catch hold. But the thing about it is that with credit cards, you have to, it's like a slippery slope, basically. Using credit cards is a slippery slope, and I can attest to that. At one point in time, I had 5 credit cards. I'm not gonna lie to you. I had like 5 credit cards and I was juggling all of them. But at the end of the day, the reality of this text is that credit cards are made to make you think like everything is okay and that you're all right whenever you're actually not. Now, the next point, don't put the burden of repayment of a loan on those you care about. Don't loan them money because it will strain your relationship. If you have it to help them, but don't put the loan as if it's a loan, and because that strains the relationship, and oftentimes you won't end up speaking to that person again. Now, in regards to this is basically like whenever it comes to borrowing money. You borrow somebody some money, and then, I mean, you lend somebody some money. I'm gonna learn how to talk one day. But you lend somebody some money, and then next thing you know, it's like, dang, you guys had a really great friendship or whatever type of relationship you guys had. And then all of a sudden, they're not answering the phone. They're dodging you. You might see them at work, but then they're dodging you. They're not trying to, they don't come in the big room no more because they know that they owe you money and stuff like that. So it's like, honestly, in regards to this, like, just don't loan them money. Like, I can speak from a fact. I don't hold it against anyone, but it's just how people feel. And sometimes whenever they know that they owe you money, which that's a guilt trip on their end, even if you're not applying it like that. But then you also have some people that will hold a grudge, like, well, you never pay me back and blah, 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 blah. So just to dead all of that, don't loan the money in the first place. Next point, don't co-sign on anything because odds are you're going to be the one that ends up paying. You can trust and believe the person all you want, but the lenders don't trust them to pay and have already predicted they won't pay. Therefore, that's why they need a co-signer. And when they don't pay, that'll leave the co-signer to pay. Now, I used to not understand this concept because back whenever I was just trying to get a car and trying to get a place, and it was like, yo, like, I wanted my aunt to co-sign for me, and I needed somebody to co-sign with me in order for me to be qualified. And it was just like, no, like, I'm not about to co-sign. So then I found a means of being able to obtain things myself. But then later on in life, I learned that from different people's stories, I've learned that that's why people don't want to co-sign. Because if you co-sign, that means that you are aligning yourself with that debt. You're aligning yourself with whatever that person has to pay, whatever that person is obligated to. And if that person doesn't make that payment, they're late on that payment, they default on the payment, then guess what? The people are going to start hitting you up. The people are going to start going after you. The people are going to hit your credit as well. They will hit their credit, but it's also going to hit you too. So it's going to basically be like, oh shoot, like you're signing on to a loan for a debt to be a part of something that you don't even reap the benefits. You just are the default person that if something happens on their end, then it's going to hurt you just like it hurts them. Next point, avoid using payday loans, rent to own, and tote the note car lots. These places feed on the poor and have super high interest rates and are not designed for you to get ahead. Now, this is so true. Like, I can speak from that because I've had like those cars where you go and put a couple of hundred down, and then you could drive off the lot, and then you just have this payment a month. Like, ideally, it makes you think like, oh, it's okay. Like, it's all right. I just have this car payment for X amount of time. And once I pay it off, then I'll be fine. But if you look at the interest rates, I had took the time to look back at my reports, and I saw that I've been making all of these payments on time and everything. And then I looked at it and I had only paid 6% of the freaking car. I was like, bro, like, this is crazy because I had been paying on it for a couple of years. And I'm like, yo, this is crazy. So it's not built for you to win. It's not designed for you to win. It's designed for you because they already know the interest rates are crazy high. So 9 times out of 10, you're not going to end up paying it off. You're not going to end up getting it done. And then guess what? They're going to get that car back. They're going to get that car back, clean it out, clean it up and all of that stuff, and sell it to the next person that's going to do the same daggone thing. Next point. 90 days is not the same as cash. So with this, you have I've done some 90-day same as cash things. And the only time I do that is whenever I know that, okay, I might have to make one payment, but then I'm going to go ahead and just pay it all off. That's the only time I do that. But at the same time, you have to keep an eye on your paperwork, because also in this book, it was a story where this lady had did that, or I forgot, was it a lady or a guy, but somebody had did that. And then turns out the people that they got the items from had backsigned their name on some other stuff. So they were incurring interest rates, and they end up having to take those people to court for trying to get thousands of dollars from them that they didn't owe because they had already paid the thing off. So you just got to make sure that you pay attention to your paperwork, know exactly what you're wanting to do, know exactly your plan, and execute it. Now, the next point is you have to reach the point that what people think is not your primary motivator. Reaching the goal is the motivator. So that is the fact that, okay, oftentimes we live off of the assumption like, oh, we just got to make it look good and this, that, and the third. Man, screw what those people think. Screw what those people think, because at the end of the day, I'm not living your life for you. You're not living my life for me. So I can't say anything in regards to what you're doing with your life. Okay, so what? So what if you ride what those cars they call them? The doom buggy? Nah, not a doom buggy. But so what if you ride a hoopty? Who cares? It's getting you from point A to point B, right? You don't got no overhead. The only thing you got to worry about is insurance. So shoot, go for it. Live your best life. Do things that are fiscally responsible for you. Don't worry about how it looks to other people, because at the end of the day, other people aren't on your journey. They're not a part of your life. They don't have to pay your bills. What you say about what I'm doing does not affect how my bills are going to be paid. It does not affect how my children are going to be taken care of. It does not affect how I'm going to live my life. So you can't worry about the opinions of others. You can't worry about what other people are doing. Now, the takeaway from this chapter is that debt is not a tool, and it is a real slippery slope that you should try to avoid. Take time to financially plan and save, and only use money that you actually have. So the basis of that is that basically, if you don't have it, don't spend it. Pretty much. If you don't have it, don't spend it. Don't hold yourself to a point where you got to be obligated to stick with this or go through this or deal with that just because you're aligned with something. Like, whatever. Like, if you don't have the money, then just be like, shoot, I'll come back whenever I got the money. You know what I'm saying? Now, the last chapter, chapter 4, you have to invest in your future. Basically, you got to make sure that you're doing due diligence to put money aside and save, even if it's just a couple of bucks here and there. Like all of those things add up. Now, the thing about saving, once you start saving, don't tap back into that money. I don't care how many times you tell yourself like, oh, I'm just going to grab this and I'm going to pay myself right back. Like, no, don't tap into that money, because the next thing you know, you're not going to be able to afford, like, you're not going to be putting that money back, because anything can happen. Things always come up in life, and it always ends up that way. So don't tap into that money. Like, don't tap into that money with the assumption that you're going to pay yourself back. Just save it. If you're saving it, save it and invest it in some asset to be able to grow it. Now, the next point is things won't be okay unless you make them that way. The takeaway from that is that we are all grown, and this is real life. This is real life. This is not a game. This is not a test. We are adults, and we are responsible for the things that we are responsible for, and there is nobody coming to save us. Nobody. There is nobody that is going to just poof out of the air. We have no fairy godmother. We have no fairy godfather. We have nobody that is going to come and save us, and we have to do due diligence and save ourselves. That's the takeaway from that. Now, the next one is that no one gets rich quick by using a secret by using secret information. Like everybody has all of these get rich quick schemes and blah 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 blah. I've tried a couple of them. I'm not gonna lie, I have. I've tried them, failed. I mean, made a little bit, but it's like at the end of the day, you have to put in the work. You have to put in the work. You have to put in this. You got to sacrifice some things, and you have to put in the work to put yourself and set yourself up the way that you need to be set up. And another takeaway is that poor is a state of mind. You have to change your mindset. If you think you're poor and you think like you're poor, then you're going to remain poor. You're going to be poor. You're going to lead a poor lifestyle. You're going to make poor choices. You're not going to do the right things. Like, you have to change your mindset. It all flows back to the mindset. And then the last point that I have for today is that a budget is people. It's a quote from John Maxwell. And he basically said a budget is people telling their money where to go instead of wondering where it went. And I have a guest that is on, so I'm going to bring them up because I have been talking for 20 minutes and I know y'all probably like, gosh, will somebody else speak? So here we go. Let me let them up. Guest joining in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. How are you?
I'm very good. I do want to address you appropriately. So, how is your name pronounced?
Moett.
Moett. Moett. That's very nice. You have a very nice name.
Thank you.
Of course. You've made some very valid points on how to be fiscally responsible, how to understand debt, and how to use it to your advantage, and also being very, 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 what's the word that I can use? Very safe with your finances. And with some of the things that you were saying, I was thinking to myself, the Kevin Hart bit, staying in your own financial lane, literally.
Right, right.
Because I think it's about understanding that, if you try to live a life that you can't afford to live, then of course you will put yourself in a very uncomfortable position. And I think it's important to have fiscal responsibility, especially at a young age when you have the opportunity to use credit to your advantage and not having all these credit. Because I'll tell you, for starters, like, I listened to you from the beginning, and I was also one of those people that had so many credit cards. It was ridiculous.
I know, because it's so fun and easy getting them.
I'm telling you, they proved, you're like, oh, snap. Oh, okay, bet. I'm going to buy this. I'm going to buy that. Oh,
Like, what?
snap. I
Y'all
got a
want to give me
statement.
one too? Okay.
Right. And then that statement hit, and you thinking like, oh, how do I pay that back? And now you're paying it back on interest, and those APRs are extremely high, annual percentage rate. And then on top of that, you're paying on compounding interest if you pay on a monthly basis, and that money, and it's harder to have a cosigner too, which is why it's important to not have a cosigner when you apply for something, especially because that is yours and it will be yours, but you're paying on it too. And it's always good to refinance as well. So because you're paying the vast majority of that on the principal of what it is that you're buying. Let's say a car, that APR is pretty high. If you're looking at anything above a 17% APR, you're really not paying that car off,
Right.
like you basically said. That's why it's good to have a good credit score and also be wary of credit cards. A very interesting tactic that I have for people that do have credit cards out there. It's a tool I call churning. It's when you use money to pay for something, but you have a credit card, use that credit card and pay that monthly balance off and reap off the benefits of the rewards of that credit card if it is a cash reward credit card. Because I'll tell you from personal experience that it is very, very useful to have a cash reward credit card to use, because instead of using money, tangible money that you have, you could be paying on a balance. That way you're benefiting off of those cash rewards and you're making money off of it. Let's say you like to travel. If you're using that travel reward credit card, you're wasting less money out of your pocket. And that's honestly one of the secrets on how the rich stay rich
Right.
because they're using another bank's debt to leverage their own finances, because it's a lender that you're using their money. These people are lending you money saying, I trust you to pay off this credit card on a monthly basis. So you're using your own money to pay it off. And if you're going to use that money to pay off the credit card, you might as well use that money for the credit card instead of blowing your money and then using a credit card as a last resort. That's just how I see it, because I can leverage that personally. Additionally, it's important that you just be wary of who you're once again, like you'd mentioned, don't let people use loans or loan people money with the expectation of expecting something back too, because I think that that is grounds for eminent domain, that creates animosity in a relationship with somebody. And I've also done that. I don't do that anymore, only if it's under extenuating circumstances, because I can tell when somebody needs something versus when they want money. Because if it's at an odd amount, I'm going to assume that they are using that money for something that is not what it was intended for. But I know that's very choosy. But in the same interest, I know when I'm being taking advantage of versus when I know somebody needs something. So I'm more than willing to extend a hand, only if it's absolutely necessary. But I don't put any stipulations under it either. I don't go, oh, you're gonna have to owe me back. I just do it because I know that I would hope that that person would do the same. I don't really set any expectations as
Right,
far as that
right,
goes. And it's just giving back. I mean, or just giving and not expecting to receive in return. Because I think if you play the game of life right, I mean, you will always receive abundantly if you have no expectations.
right. And that's how you should do anyway. Like, you should only give if you know you just, it shouldn't be like, oh my gosh, well, I'm going to give it because shoot, I know I'm going to need this back. Like, no, just give it because you know that, hey, I got it to give and I know you need it.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that's part of the reason why there's a little bit of a disconnect when it comes to finances, because everybody's on their own gain, on their own mission, and that's fine. Be about you, be about your life, but just don't try to set any stipulations or any terms or agreements if you're doing it in the interest of expecting something in return. And I used to associate myself with people like that would just, like with gas money and stuff like that, try to create an issue out of nothing and make it all about the money. Like, I gave you this, I gave you that. I'm like, okay, well, I mean, I didn't know that you were expecting it back, or I never try to throw that back at anybody, because I just do it simply because
Right,
it's the
right,
right thing to do in my mind. But
right,
yeah,
right,
it's about leveraging your finances and understanding that it's worth it to save and invest, and making sure that you're solidifying your finances, because no one's going to take care of your pockets except for you. So it's all about, and another thing that you mentioned as well, which is important, is making a sacrifice. $120 you're spending on a pair of shoes is that money that you could be using to invest. I'm really big on investing. So I'm a minimalist. I don't really care about, like, I see money differently. I see money as an opportunity to invest. Like, if you were to give me $200 right now and say, "Yo, Mac, what are you going to do with that $200?" I'm gonna tell you right now. I'm gonna turn the $200 to $600. That $600 it's a $1,300, so on and so forth. Because I believe in investing, trading, and making and multiplying my gains. Because I've myself seen the gains of what it's like to make money off of investing and in marketing, in the market as well, and trading. And I have no doubt that that money that I see that I would have wasted could have multiplied. But I know it's a mindset too. Like you said, if you have that poor mindset, you're going to live under low expectations. You're not going to expect much. You're going to live like you can't afford anything, and you're not going to try to do anything to get yourself out of that situation, because you're going to believe that you don't really, you're just going to condition yourself to believe that you deserve to live that kind of lifestyle, and you're not going to get out of that as easily as you should, if you believe that you're capable of doing something. That's why I don't like to have a poor mindset. I think of every bad experience monetarily as a limited financial experience that I will grow from.
right, right. That's what it is though. Everything boils down to your mindset. Like, what are you feeding your mind? How do you think about this? Because if you're going to be negative about it, then of course, like, it's this, I forgot who said it, but I always think about it all the time. Like, someone said that whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. You're absolutely right. 100% of the time.
If you limit yourself, if you believe that you're not capable of reaching a certain limit, then you will not succeed at that expectation, based off of limiting yourself and your thoughts as well. Of course, you're going to underperform if you think you're not capable of doing a certain task, or if you think you're not capable of affording a vacation or a car, or you prioritize certain quick instantaneous gratifications off of buying things like shoes. And of course you want to attain that goal of getting what it is that you truly want. I mean, that's just simple math in my head. Like, if I really want to pursue a goal or getting what it is that I'm chasing after, then of course I'll get it. I will manifest it. I have to apply myself. I have to make some sacrifices. Might have to break some legs. metaphorically speaking, of course. But in the interest of what it is that I set for myself and my future goals, these sacrifices are pretty much worth it in the end. It's like the ends justify the means.
Right, right. That's absolutely right.
But yeah, I just thought I'd come in here and chime in real quickly. I do appreciate you having me on the stage, and I look forward to more proactive discussions with you in the future. You keep doing great things, okay?
All right. Well, definitely thank you for coming up, and I'll be here every Sunday at 7 p.m. Um, to close, well, to close out.
You take
All right, you too. So to close out, guys, if you're just tuning in, you'll be able to replay the talk and everything. But basically, read the introduction all the way up through chapter 4 this week, the Total Money Makeover. Next week, well, this upcoming week, we're going to be reading from chapter 5 all the way through chapter 7. And then we're going to come back and discuss it next Sunday. All right. I'll be here 7 p.m. Remember that life is too short to be anything but motivated. Now get out there and turn your dreams into a vision and make that your reality. All right. I love you guys. See you next week.